This is the Tree of Life, Season 22, Chapter 1. In this episode, we will be reconceptualizing reverse substitution events and substitution events in terms of the quantum eraser experiment. To begin, when a reverse substitution event does not lead to integration of the impulse into the self-representation of the outgoing consciousness, the result is a sequential substitution event. We talked about how this shifts the intersection of the two open sets corresponding to the analog structure's impulses outside the self-representation of the subject. The idea was that if reverse substitution leads to integration, that is, it is not terminated by negation, then coherence is preserved. If coherence is not preserved, then the analog structure which results, being contextually dialectical, produces decoherence, manifesting as that incoming consciousness becoming an object referential to the subject. Now, in this case, whereas the initial priority was determined by tautological natural law, the incoming consciousness must now impose a hierarchy upon the subject by force, authority, or reconciliation. By compelling acquiescence in the subsequent substitution event, the past is retrospectively erased, such that the negation, at the conclusion of the reverse substitution, never occurred. In this case, the decoherence is erased as if it never occurred and coherence continues from the reverse substitution. This tells us a few very interesting things. First, it tells us that ordinarily these reverse substitutions occur unbeknownst to the subject, preserving coherence. That is, it is in the negation that a measurement occurs of that subject, which results in the decoherence, temporarily. Thus, in this arrangement, negation is measurement, and the compelling of acquiescence, its retrospective elimination. Likewise, we see also that the relationship between hierarchical natural law and tautological natural law is not purely one of alternatives. In this example, hierarchy recapitulates tautology, which prospectively eliminates the force used to preserve coherence. This means, for example, that whenever one shifts preference, there is force applied by some other to oneself to retrospectively eliminate the decoherence, although that force isn't directly observable except in the moment. This is because the reverse substitution event erases the future corresponding to that substitution event prospectively, whilst the substitution event erases it retrospectively. Reverse substitution events are about integration of common impulses. Emotional coupling. Hierarchy is about ownership of objects. The higher in priority, the outgoing consciousness, retains ownership over the objects implicated by given impulses, since the intersection of the two open sets corresponding to the structure lay within the self-representation of that consciousness. Hierarchy is ultimately about preferential expectation matching. It is priority which determines in whose self-representation the intersection of two open sets corresponding to impulses, which are dialectical by context fall. Thus, hierarchies automatically form relative to common objects, either fixed or physical, or unfixed, ideal, according to priority. From all of this we can see that hierarchical natural law plays a role in the elimination of interference caused by the interaction of the flow of common consciousness with individual subjects. Hierarchical natural law is a stopgap measure which can correct these errors in the tautological flow of consciousness from vessel to vessel. But the darker part of it is, the primary method by which this occurs is through the application of force to the non-acquiescent subject during a sequential substitution event. This force is not recalled by the subject, because the events are erased both prospectively and retrospectively. That's the end of the podcast for today.